3 reasons for inflation and why it's not going away. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. Grab your stein of coffee. Let's have a look at this article from Zero Hedge, which is discussing, well, 3 reasons for inflation, or why it's rising, and why it's not going to go away. So, before we get to that, right now, if we look at the US inflation rate, it's up to 2.6%, everyone. I know you may not agree with how they measure it, but sadly, this is what they're going to use for policy decisions. So that's why we need to pay attention to it. Same thing here in Australia. Our inflation is creeping up over 1%. We have a look here. This is manifesting in goods. Now, there's an argument that it's just transitory and is going to disappear eventually. We'll have to see. Look at lumber. I updated this page. Before I'd updated, it was around $1,400. Now it's $1,700, everyone, for 1,000 board feet of lumber. Iron ore, $207. There you go. We've broken that $200 US mark. Half of it is still viable at $50. The higher this goes with resources, the more mines that become valuable. I've been told here in Australia that mining's starting to kick up again. So I'm hoping there'll be some more CapEx works, capital expenditure in that sector. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually an architect and we did a lot of work on the mines back in the day. Steel, there you go, guys. Steel rebar, 5,474 Chinese yuan. And here we have wheat. Wheat is also shooting up over $770 now. It's just all getting more expensive in these primary items. And we've seen again and again and again manufacturers that have been increasing their costs. So, I mean, let's have a look. Let's jump here and look at this article from Zero Hedge to see these reasons. And this is by Simon Black of Sovereign Man. 3 reasons why inflation is rising. 2 of them aren't going away. A remarkable thing happened yesterday that tells you everything you need to know about inflation. In the morning, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated bluntly that interest rates will have to rise somewhat to make sure that our economy doesn't overheat. For economists, an overheating economy means inflation. So she was essentially saying that rates would have to rise to prevent inflation. Yet hours later, she completely reversed herself, saying that interest rates would not have to rise because I don't think there's going to be an inflationary problem. What do you reckon? Who do you believe, everyone? You know why? It's because the market started selling off. Market said no. You don't need a PhD in economics to smell the BS. Inflation is not some potential issue down the road. Inflation is already here. As Warren Buffett told investors only days ago, we're seeing very substantial inflation. Plenty of companies have already announced price increases to their consumers, and plenty are also introducing shrinkflation, where the size of the products you buy are smaller, less items per, same price, less items. Procter & Gamble, for instance, announced price hikes across the board on just about everything from diapers to beauty cream. Hershey's announced in February that it would be rising prices. Food giant General Mills complained in February about a higher inflationary environment and input cost pressures due to rising commodity prices. Clorox, Shake Shack, Kimberly-Clark, Whirlpool, Hormel, Coca-Cola are among, Wonka? Should that be Wonka? Anyway, are among the many companies that have announced price increases. And according to Bank of America Global Research, the number of mentions of inflation on corporate earnings calls has increased 8,000% compared to last year. You know what? Let's just look up Google Trends. And we'll have a look at inflation, everyone. Probably should have thought about this beforehand, but it's probably worth just doing. You can see. Let's look at this. Let's see how much it's increasing. Okay, so there we go. I mean, interest over time for all of this year, it's going up. This is here in Australia. There you are. It's growing, growing, growing. What other areas? Let's see. Worldwide, and we'll go past 5 years. So, yeah, it's gone up, it's increased. We can see it over here, everyone. it's gone up, but not as dramatic as you might think. There we can see. Well, certain African countries, it's surging. In Zimbabwe, well, it's kind of sad. Venezuela, Sonic the Hedgehog video game. How does Sonic the Hedgehog video game series related to inflation? I don't know. I guess it is. So there you have it. So its interest, well, definitely it is peaking. You know, it is higher than it has been for some time. So it's generally between this bound of 75 to 50, and now we're, essentially up to 100. So inflation is clearly a concern of the largest companies in the world, and investors are worried. Consumers can see it. Last year, the entire world shut down. Businesses and factories everywhere closed, and plenty of companies went out of business. Many companies who survived took radical steps to conserve cash, laying off workers, liquidating inventory, and selling equipment. One critical consequence was that the amount of capacity in the system was greatly reduced. Here's an example. I've been in Cancun for several weeks, and as you know, this place is a major tourist destination. Last year, when tourism dried up, plenty of companies went out of business. Rental car companies, for example, had practically zero customers. Many went bankrupt. Others survived by selling off most of their vehicles, believing it would be years before tourists returned. But a year later, the tourists are back. Problem is, there are now very few cars to rent in Cancun, because rental agencies either went bankrupt or liquidated their inventories. As a result, car rental prices have surged. Supply is scarce, yet demand is back to normal. We are seeing similar effects across the economy. Capacity is limited because of the extreme measures that businesses took last year, and they can't simply flip a switch and bring capacity back to normal. It takes time. They'll have to invest in inventory, hire more staff. Eventually, those supply-demand imbalances will stabilize, but the foreseeable future, it's driving prices higher. This is the type of inflation that politicians and central bankers have been calling transitory. In other words, it's temporary pressure that should subside in the future. Well, that's okay. So that's the transitory inflation, as he's saying. So, number 2, the COVID lunacy. Hardly anyone talks about this, but just think about all the idiotic rules that people have to follow now. Well, yes. If you own a retail store in a shopping mall, for example, you have to pay employees to stand at the door ready to hose down every customer who walks in with hand sanitizer. Well, I mean, this is now the cost. And I've been discussing this not specifically with this illness. My concern is now that locking down our economy, the potential risk of that, is now just a cost of doing business. There's going to be calls for lockdowns and restrictions now moving forward forever. You're going to see it. How long until a generation forgets? Imagine how much money businesses are spending on PPE, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, or companies, airlines, hotels, etc., that now employ legions of workers to chemically scrub every nook and cranny on the premises. All of this cost, money, and extra costs eventually get passed on to consumers. Most likely these measures are not going away, which means that COVID is extremely inflationary. Number 3, trillions in money printing. Their chief remaining lender these days, the chief remaining lender these days is the Federal Reserve, which first has to print money before loaning it to the government. The actual process is more modern and complex, but that's basically what happens in a nutshell. The more money the government spends, the more the Fed prints, roughly 4 trillion last year. And as this freshly created money makes its way through the economy, it typically ends up in financial markets, driving asset prices higher. It's not a coincidence that the Fed has created record sums of money, and the stock market is simultaneously at a record high. Ditto for real estate, cryptocurrency, collectibles. Many commodities are also at record highs. Lumber prices have never been higher. Corn is near all-time highs. Oil prices surged from minus $40 a barrel last year to $70 today, a difference of $110. Higher commodity prices eventually lead to higher consumer prices. High lumber prices, for example, mean that housing costs increase. Higher corn prices mean higher food prices. Higher fuel prices mean higher transportation costs, which increase the price of almost everything. As long as the Federal Reserve is printing money and holding rates down to historic lows, these prices will likely keep rising. Given the US government's insatiable appetite to borrow money from the Fed, this inflation pressure is not going away. And after what we saw yesterday, it's clear that the government's approach will be to ignore or dismiss inflation risks. On another note, we think gold could double and silver could increase up to 5 times in the next few years. And there's their published note that you can have a look. So, there you go, everyone. 3 reasons for inflation. And, well, the new mitigation measures won't go away. And, well, we'll have to see if the incessant stimulus from the government, particularly in the Fed, will manifest or will be transitory. What do you reckon, everyone? So there we have it. 3 reasons for inflation. Now, I did a video. I'd suggest you prepare yourself for this, and let's have a talk about 5 ways that people use to avoid inflation. Some people think this is the beginning of hyperinflation. Others are saying we're actually entering a deflationary period where this will just be a temporary blip, and then we'll start to see deflation. What do you think, everyone? Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can sign up for SelfWealth or Stake for your share trading. Use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. Buy our merch from HeiseSays. Use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.